How you doing, everybody? Back again. Here to read another book. I don't know how many of you have know the tale of Pinocchio, but that's what we're getting ready to dive into. This is another one of my segments. I'm just gonna plain out read the book Pinocchio. Anybody who loves the book Pinocchio will want it. Hopefully, kids that watch this go out and buy Pinocchio and get reading. All right. So here we go. Okay. One night long, long ago, the evening star shone down across the dark sky. Its beams formed a shimmering pathway to a tiny village, whose humble little homes lay lay deep in sleep. Only one house still had a light burning in the window, and that was the workshop of Geppetto, the kindly old woodcarver. Geppetto had stayed up to finish a merry-faced little puppet he was carving. Now he held the puppet up. "Look, Figaro, look, Cleo," he chuckled. "Isn't Pinocchio almost like a real boy?" The only answer was a snore. Figaro had his soft kitten nose folded into his paws. Cleo lay sleeping in her goldfish bowl. "Sleepyheads," the old woodcarver sighed. Climbing creakily into bed, he mumbled, "I wish you really were a real boy, Pinocchio." Somebody overheard Geppetto's wish, and that was the cricket, Jiminy Cricket. All evening Jiminy had sat hidden behind the hearth. He had seen how kind and gentle the woodcarver was, and he felt sorry because he knew the lonely old man's wish could never come true. Suddenly, a shimmering light filled the room. Jiminy gasped. Out of the light stepped a beautiful lady dressed in shining blue. She raised her wand and said, "Wake, Pinocchio, skip and run. Good Geppetto needs a son." Pinocchio blinked his eye and raised his wooden arms. "I can move," he cried. "I'm a real boy." "No," the blue fairy said sadly. "You have life, but to become a real boy you must prove yourself brave, truthful, and unselfish." "But how can I do that?" asked Pinocchio, discouraged. "You'll have a conscience to help you." Looking around, the blue fairy beckoned Jiminy out of his hiding place. "Sir, Jiminy Cricket," she said, "I dub you Lord High Keeper of Pinocchio's conscience." The next morning, Geppetto couldn't stop rubbing his eyes. There was the puppet he had carved last night, laughing and chattering and running around the workshop. No, it can't be true," Geppetto argued. "It's a dream." But Pinocchio ran to him and threw his wooden arms around his neck. "It's true, father," he cried. "It's true. I'm alive." And then Geppetto realized that a miracle had really happened. After his first great joy was over, Geppetto said, "But now, Pinocchio, you must go to school." He brought out a bundle of school books. "Study hard, then you'll soon become a real boy." Pinocchio nodded happily. "Goodbye, father," he shouted, and off he marched with his books under his arm, chock full of good resolutions. Meanwhile, Jiminy Cricket had overslept, and now jumped in a great hurry. Quickly he stuffed his shirt into his trousers and rushed out. "Hey, Pinocchio," he called, "wait for me." Panting, he caught up with Pinocchio just as the silly puppet was walking off arm in arm with the worst pair of scoundrels in the whole countryside. The villains were a fox by the name of J. Worthington Foulfellow and a stupid cat called Gideon. "Yes," the sly fox was saying to Pinocchio, "you're too talented a boy to waste your time in school, isn't he, Gideon?" Gideon nodded. "With that face, you should be an actor, my boy." Pinocchio smiled, pleased at the flattery. "But Pinocchio," cried Jiminy, "what will your father say?" Pinocchio looked startled when he saw Jiminy. He said crossly, "Oh, father will be proud of me." Jiminy knew Pinocchio was being foolish, but the blue fairy had appointed him the puppet's conscience. So he followed along loyally. Soon they came to a marionette theater. When Stromboli, its owner, saw Pinocchio, his small, evil eyes glistened. "What a drawing card," he breathed. "A puppet without strings?" The fox nodded. "And he's yours," he said, smiling greedily, holding out his paw for a certain price, of course. That night Pinocchio sang and danced with the spotlight upon him, as Foulfellow had promised. The audience clapped and cheered and roared for more. A puppet without strings? It was a miracle. Jiminy, sitting in the audience, felt terrible. You'd better congratulate Pinocchio and go off alone. He thought sadly to himself, what does a great actor need a conscience for? After the show, Pinocchio held out his hand to Stromboli and said, shyly, "Goodbye, sir, and thank you. Shall I come back tomorrow?" Stromboli smiled an ugly smile. "Not so fast, young man," he snarled. "You're mine, and you stay here." And bang! Before Pinocchio could resist, he was locked in a birdcage. Suddenly, the blue fairy stood before them. She asked, "Pinocchio, why didn't you go to school?" "School? Well, Pinocchio began. "I was going to school till I met somebody." "Met somebody?" "Yeah, two big monsters." Jiminy clapped both hands to his head and frowned. Pinocchio's nose began to grow longer. "Monsters?" asked the blue fairy. "Weren't you afraid?" "No, ma'am," said Pinocchio, "but they tied me in a big sack." His nose grew even longer. He squinted at it in surprise. "Oh, my nose! What happened?" The blue fairy said, "Perhaps you haven't been telling the truth, Pinocchio. You see, a lie keeps growing and growing until it's as plain as the nose on your face." Pinocchio was ashamed. "I shall never lie again. Honest, I won't." "Very well," said the blue fairy. "I'll help you this time, because you are truly sorry. Be good now, Pinocchio." And as she waved her wand, Jiminy and Pinocchio found themselves standing on the open road again. "Whew!" Pinocchio sighed thankfully. "Let's go home, Jiminy." The two friends started running as fast as they could, when whom they bumped into but Foulfellow and Gideon. "Pinocchio!" Foulfellow cried. "My dearest young friend, how does it feel to be a great actor?" "Awful," said Pinocchio. "Stromboli put me in a cage, and he told Foulfellow how badly he had fared." The sly fox pretended to be deeply shocked before Jiminy knew what had happened. Foulfellow had persuaded the gullible puppet to forget his good resolutions and take a rest cure on Pleasure Island.